All right, good morning, everyone. This meeting is called to order. Mr. Trobin, has anyone signed up for public comment? All right, morning, Ms. Miller.
Good morning, sir.
On agenda item 3, do we have any cases to reconsider?
No, sir.
Under agenda item 4, that's tax liability cases. We have one case on docket 22 and maybe 2 cases on docket 23.
Good morning. For the record, Hugh Daniel, Special Program Appeals. That is correct, Chairman Daniel. There's one tax liability case on docket 22 and 2 tax liability cases on docket 23. The case number on docket 22 is TD-25-002-0125. Commissioner Esparza.
I agree with the recommendation.
Commissioner Trevino.
I agree with staff's recommendation.
Chairman Daniel.
Agree with staff recommendation.
The first case number on docket 23 is TD-24-063-1224. Commissioner Esparza.
I agree with the recommendation.
Commissioner Trevino.
I agree with staff's recommendation.
And Chairman Daniel.
Agree with staff's recommendation.
The second case number on docket 23 is TD-25-001-0125. Commissioner Esparza.
I reluctantly agree with the staff recommendation. We're prepared to find that the plumbers, presumably the journeyman plumbers who have the most experience, have their own companies and hire and pay their own crews, were employers in their own rights and should not be considered in the employment of the named company. I supported holding a rehearing to allow the employer an opportunity to present specific evidence on those points, but unfortunately the employer did not participate in the rehearing or contact TWC regarding its inability to do so. Finding that a worker is an independent contractor must have at least some basis in evidence, and such evidence is lacking in this case. Accordingly, I agree with the staff recommendation that journeyman plumbers, tradesmen plumbers, and apprentice plumbers are in employment. The operators are not in employment, and that the company is a liable employer. However, I would like to file a long form concurring opinion in this case to explain the decision in this case, to explain the decision in this case and to let the employer know that it has the right to file a motion for reconsideration and request another hearing, but must show that it had good cause to miss the most recent hearing. Thank you.
Commissioner Trevino.
I agree with staff's recommendation.
And Chairman Daniel.
The firm failed to rebut the presumption of employment for the tradesmen and apprentice plumbers, and specifically the law necessarily requires these plumbers to be in employment at the firm. Consequently, the firm became a liable employer on June 30th, 2024. But the firm rebutted the presumption of employment for journeyman plumbers and operators because it does not exercise sufficient control over these workers. So I agree in part with the staff recommendation. The tradesmen plumbers and the apprentice plumbers are in employment. The operators and the journeyman plumbers are not in employment. The employer is liable.
We do have a majority vote, and as far as the plumbers are in employment and the operator is not in employment. Would you like to file? Would you
Long form dissent.
Long form. All right. The recommendation will go through with the concurring long form and the long form dissent as well. That concludes tax liability cases on this docket. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. No fair housing cases on agenda item 5. No child labor cases on agenda item 6. Under agenda item 7, we have no wage claim cases on docket 22, but we do have one case on docket 23 that's been pulled for additional discussion.
Yes, sir. The one case on docket 23 pulled for discussion is case number 23-063532-3. Commissioner Esparza.
We should hold a rehearing in this wage claim case. The evidence in the current record is insufficient to determine what the company's policy regarding payouts of accrued vacation leave was at the time of the claimant's work separation. The only evidence offered by the claimant consisted of snippets of text from a larger document, but there was no clear indication of whether the quotes came from a document signed by the employer. The employer stated that vacation leave was given on a, quote, use it or lose it, end quote, basis, and that the company did not pay unused leave time to former employees. Claimant's appeal to the commission included new selections from what he indicated was the company's policy handbook, but the employer has not had an opportunity to see that evidence and testify about it. Accordingly, we should hold a rehearing to obtain additional testimony and other evidence from both parties regarding the company's vacation policy.
The AT decision is not fully supportable. I do not dispute that the claimant did not submit evidence of a policy providing for the payment of accrued sick leave at separation. However, regarding the claimant's claim for vacation pay, the claimant submitted a copy of a written policy which established that accrued vacation pay would be paid upon separation from employment. The claimant also provided firsthand testimony corroborated by a written statement from a former coworker indicating that it was the employer's policy that accrued vacation was paid upon separation from employment. The employer provided no policy handbook or other evidence in support of its testimony that they did not pay accrued vacation upon separation. Therefore, the weight of the evidence provided established that the claimant is owed wages for his 160 hours of accrued unused vacation pay. Modify the AT, $11,265.60 in wages owed.
Rehear.
We will rehear the case. That was all the pulled cases for wage claims on dockets 22 and 23. You should have received the wage claim short form dissent lists for dockets 22 and 23.
I move we accept staff recommendations on the remaining wage claim cases on dockets 22 and 23.
I second the motion except for those cases which I am dissenting as reflected on wage claim short form dissent list for docket 22 and 23.
I concur with the chairman's motion, except for the cases on which I am dissenting is reflected in a wage claim short form dissent list for dockets 22 and 23.
Motion passes with the exceptions noted.
Thank you.
Let's move then to agenda item 8, consideration of unemployment insurance cases. Please proceed when you are ready.
Case number 3231998, Commissioner Esparza.
The commission should grant a rehearing in this case. In its appeal to the commission, the employer contends that it submitted a change of address form to the the Texas Workforce Commission, but that its address was not updated as requested. The employer attached its address change form, and it is dated prior to the issuance of the determination in question. This evidence is highly relevant to the issue of the timeliness of the employer's appeal. Accordingly, we should rehear the case to enter the employer's commission appeal evidence into the record and to take testimony on the same.
Since the AT decision did not rule on the timeliness of the employer's appeal, the decision should be set aside and the commission should rule on that issue. The determination was mailed to the employer's correct address of record, and the employer failed to file a timely appeal. The employer alleged late receipt of the determination, but the employer moved from their address of record in 2021 and failed to properly update their record with the commission. Therefore, the employer's appeal should be dismissed as late. Set aside the AT decision, late employer appeal, initial determination left in full force and effect.
It appears the employer provided credible and persuasive evidence that it made diligent efforts to change its address of record with TWC and timely file its appeal. Set aside the AT, timely appeal, resubmit.
I'll go with the chairman.
Thank you. We will resubmit the case.
Case number 3331998, Commissioner Trevino.
The AT decision is not supportable. As we previously voted, the claimant had good cause for missing AT1, and the claimant filed a timely appeal. Regarding the issue of PUA eligibility, the claimant received the notice to provide proof of employment instructing him to submit the requested proof by 8/25 of 21. And the claimant testified that he submitted the documentation on 8/9 of 21. He also provided an email confirmation showing that the proof was sent on that date. Since the claimant provided sworn firsthand testimony corroborated by documentary evidence establishing that he provided the proof of employment prior to the deadline, the claimant should be held eligible for PUA. Modify the AT. Claimant had good cause for AT1, timely claimant appeal, PUA eligible, no overpayment. However, if my fellow commissioners do not agree that the claimant has established that he provided the proof of employment documentation within the given time frame, we should rehear this case to further question the claimant regarding the corroborating evidence that he provided to support his firsthand testimony.
The AT decision should be modified. On docket 17, the claimant was found to have good cause to miss the first hearing and to have filed a timely appeal. On the merits of the PUA eligibility issue, the claimant's evidence of timely submission of proof of employment was not credible due to the time stamp issue, and the alleged proof of employment displays a university logo that appears to have been digitally copied and pasted into another image. Logo portion looks like it's been clipped while being copied from another image. And the pasted in portion appears to have a different background color that the address portion of the image shows. Moreover, the alleged logo is very pixelated, looks out of focus and compared with the text of the address in the image, and displays the visual artifacts around the letters that one normally sees with non-vector images when they are resized. It is not a credible that a major university would have such an image on earning statements for an employee. Accordingly, we should modify the AT decision. The claimant had good cause to miss the first hearing and filed a timely appeal. Ineligibility for PUA benefits beginning December 27th of 2020, overpayment of $2,898.
Timely appeal, good cause, PUA not eligible beginning December 27th, 2020, overpayment.
Short form dissent, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Case number 3551598, Commissioner Trevino.
The AT decision is not supportable. I agree that the claimant had good cause for a failure to appear at AT1. However, regarding the timeliness issue, the claimant's claim was dated 3/15 of 20, and the claimant stopped filing payment request in July of 2020. Yet the determinations at issue in this case were not sent until 12/14 of 21. The claimant could not be expected to timely respond to documentation sent to her by the commission on an indefinite basis. This delay in issuing the determinations constituted commission misinformation, sufficient to deem the claimant's appeal timely and resubmit the case for merits testimony. Modify the AT, claimant had good cause for AT1, timely claimant appeal, resubmit.
The AT decision is supportable. I agree that the claimant had good cause to miss the first hearing due to work demands. However, the claimant filed a late appeal from the initial determinations. TWC did not give her misleading information. She was aware of the adverse decision soon after they were sent to her, but waited several months after the appeal deadline to take action. Her late appeals meant that TWC has no jurisdiction to consider the merits of the overpayment determination and the denial of her waiver request. Accordingly, we should affirm the AT decision. The claimant had good cause to miss the first hearing. The claimant filed a late appeal, which provides overpayment of $1,800, waiver denied.
I do not believe the claimant was properly informed of the consequences of not appealing the underlying earnings adjustment determination. Imposing a large FPUC overpayment on the claimant without notice does raise some due process concerns. This case should be reheard with the underlying earnings adjustment. So timely appeal, good cause, rehear as a companion case with case number 2818374 for merits of underlying earnings adjustment.
I'll agree with the chairman.
Thank you. We will rehear the case and companion it.
Case number 3606135, Commissioner Trevino.
I agree that the AT2 decision should be set aside. Both parties participated in the AT1 and the AT2 hearings was set up in an error. Regarding the timeliness issue, the initial determination was received at the employer's office shortly after it was mailed, but the employer filed their appeal 10 days after the deadline. The employer testified that their appeal was late because the office manager who handles such matters was on vacation when the determination arrived and filed the appeal when she returned to the office. Therefore, the employer did not show that their late appeal fell within the exception to the timeliness rules, and the AT1 decision properly dismissed the appeal as late. Set aside the AT2, affirm the AT1, late employer appeal. In the alternative, my fellow commissioners do not agree that the employer's appeal was late. The claimant provided credible testimony that he was laid off from his job due to lack of work. Set aside AT2, modify AT1, timely employer appeal, no misconduct, chargeback.
We should set aside the AT2 decision and reverse the AT1 decision. Concerning timeliness, TWC records indicate that claim correspondence from the employer was received within the appeal deadline. Since TWC has proof of the employer's timely submission, we should hold the employer's appeal timely. Concerning the job separation, the claimant quit due to dissatisfaction with his working conditions. Although the employer attempted to remedy the claimant's concern and furthermore inform the claimant about his importance and the importance of teamwork, claimant nonetheless resigned. Since the claimant quit when continued work was available, his separation was voluntary and without good cause connected with the work. As such, we should set aside the AT2 decision and reverse the AT1 decision. Timely employer appeal, voluntary leaving, no chargeback, adequate employer response.
Set aside AT2, modify AT1, timely appeal, voluntary leaving, no chargeback, adequate employer response.
Short form dissent, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Case number 3629107, Commissioner Esparza.
The AT decision should be modified. I don't contest the timeliness or good cause issues. As to the job separation, this case is about whether the claimant knew that obtaining her teaching certificate was a condition of employment. Despite her testimony to the contrary, the weight of the evidence indicates that she did. The claimant's contract was probationary and was conditioned on providing the certification in question as required by, among other things, the district and also the employer, who was also the employer, excuse me. The contract further stated that failure to maintain certification could be grounds for discharge. Since claimant signed the contract, she knew or should have known that failure to abide by its terms would result in termination. As such, the claimant's action constituted the equivalent of misconduct connected with work. We should therefore modify the AT decision. Timely claimant petition to reopen. The claimant had good cause for her non-appearance, misconduct, reimbursing employer not billed, adequate employer response.
Timely petition to reopen, good cause, misconduct, reimbursing employer not billed, adequate employer response.
Short form dissent, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Case number 3652912, Commissioner Trevino.
This case should be reheard. The claimant chose to resign in lieu of termination after the employer indicated that they would be recommending his termination to the school board for his role in de-escalating an altercation between a student and another teacher. The record showed or should be developed further on whether the employer would have submitted the recommendation to the school board had the claimant not chosen to resign, and whether the employer told the claimant of this decision, in which case the claimant's separation should be viewed as a involuntary discharge. Furthermore, the case should also be reheard to further develop the record on the final incident that led to the termination recommendation. Rehear.
We should reverse the AT decision. Due to the claimant's inappropriate physical contact with a student, he was informed that the employer would be recommending his discharge to the school board. Claimant resigned in response. Only the school board had the power to discharge the claimant. The employer would simply make a recommendation, which the school board could reject. Furthermore, the employer presented two witnesses who corroborated that the claimant was not told he would be fired if he did not resign. Let me go back over that sentence if you wouldn't mind. Furthermore, the employer presented two witnesses who corroborated that the claimant was not told, he would be fired if he did not resign. Thus, because the claimant resigned in anticipation of potential discharge, his quitting was without good cause connected with the work. Accordingly, we should reverse the AT decision, voluntary leaving, reimbursing employer not billed, adequate employer response.
Rehear.
We will rehear the case.
Case number 3659912, Commissioner Trevino.
While the claimant filed a late appeal to the commission, this case involves a continued claim related to complainant working as a marketplace contractor in self-employment. As such, there was no separation from employment, and the continued claim should be voided. Deem the CA appeal timely, set aside the AT decision, void the continued claim.
We should dismiss the claimant's CA appeal as late. The claimant filed his appeal well after the applicable deadline for timely appeal. Since there are no good cause exception to the timeliness rules, we should dismiss the claimant's CA appeal as late and leave the underlying AT decision in full force and effect, voluntary leaving overpayment.
Deem commission appeal timely, resubmit.
We have majority vote on the timeliness, but not yet on what to do with the case after that.
Ma'am, I'll agree with the chair.
We will resubmit the case. That was the last case pulled for additional discussion on docket 22. And just to clarify, all those cases were on docket 22. You should have received the UI short form dissent list for docket 22.
I move we accept staff recommendations on the remaining UI cases on docket 22.
I second the motion except for those cases which I am dissenting as reflected on UI short form dissent list for docket 22.
I concur with the chairman's motion, except for the cases on which I am dissenting as reflected in UI short form dissent list for docket 22.
Motion passes with the exceptions noted.
Thank you. Continuing with docket 23.
Case number 3122012, Commissioner Trevino.
This case involves a continued claim related to the claimant working as a marketplace contractor in self-employment. As such, there was no separation from employment and the continued claim should be voided. Deem the claimant's CA appeal timely, set aside the AT decision, void the continued claim.
We previously held that the claimant's CA appeal was timely concerning the job separation. The claimant stopped working due to complication with her vehicle. Since the claimant quit when continued work was available, her separation was voluntary and without good cause connected with the work. As such, we should hold the claimant's CA appeal timely and leave the underlying AT decision full force in effect. Valid claim, voluntary leaving, overpayment.
Set aside the AT, valid claim, deem commission appeal timely, void the continued claim, no overpayment.
Short form dissent.
I have your dissent, sir, and Commissioner Trevino, I don't believe you stated a vote on the overpayment. Voiding the continued claim would result in a reversal of the related overpayment. Could you please state your vote on the overpayment?
Yeah, it was deemed the complainant CA appeal timely, set aside, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
Set aside the AT decision, void the continued claim, and I'll go ahead and say no overpayment.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Case number 3639277, Commissioner Esparza.
We should modify the AT decision. First, I agree the employer had good cause for its non-appearance. Concerning job separation, the claimant quit rather than participate in cross-training to learn other skills. The employer explained that the employees, not just the claimant, were being asked to learn additional tasks to support one another. Claimant's position as a machinist was not being eliminated, nor was tack welding becoming his new full-time job. The employer's request was reasonable and not a substantial change to the hiring agreement. Thus, because the claimant quit rather than comply with a reasonable request by their employer, he quit without good cause connected with the work. Modify the AT decision. The employer had good cause for its non-appearance, voluntary leaving, no chargeback, adequate employer response.
The AT decision should be affirmed. I do not contest that the employer had good cause for failing to appear at the AT1. Regarding the job separation, the evidence showed that the claimant, who was not hired to be a welder and had no prior experience as a welder, was told by the employer that he would be required to train to perform welding duties. The claimant was not informed of this requirement at hire and had not agreed to take on the inherent risks that come with welding when he accepted the job. The claimant informed the employer that he did not want to train as a welder, but was told that it was mandatory. Therefore, since the claimant's hiring agreement was changed to include duties that carried an inherent degree of risk, which the claimant did not agree to at the time of hire. The claimant had good cause connected with the work for quitting. Affirm the AT, employer established good cause for AT1, no voluntary leaving, chargeback.
Good cause, voluntary leaving, no chargeback, adequate employer response.
Short form dissent, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Case number 3673457, Commissioner Trevino.
The AT decision is not supportable. The claimant only attended a 2-day orientation. During the orientation, the employer informed the claimant that a background check was required for the job. This was not mentioned during the application process. When the claimant advised the employer that she had a pending charge that might show up on the background check, the employer decided not to move forward with her employment. The claimant did not commit any misconduct, as she was not informed until the orientation that a background check was required for the job, and she did not fail to disclose any information. Furthermore, the claimant was not even required to accept this job because it was not suitable work for the claimant, since it paid well below her commission established wage demand. Therefore, the claimant should not be disqualified for benefits based on her brief participation in the orientation. Reverse the AT, no misconduct, no overpayment.
The AT decision should be affirmed. The claimant was separated from work due to failing a background check. The claimant's fact-finding statement are very clear. She was informed of the rule that she needed to pass a background check during orientation. She did not pass the background check. She was aware of her actions that could lead to discharge, and she was aware of the employer's rules and policies. Moreover, Section 207045 G-1 would not apply to this case because the claimant did not voluntarily quit the job. Accordingly, the claimant's actions constituted the equivalent of misconduct connected with the work. We should therefore affirm the AT decision, misconduct, overpayment.
No misconduct, no overpayment.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir.
Case number 3678759, Commissioner Esparza.
We should modify the AT decision. I don't dispute the timeliness and validity of claim findings regarding the merits. The claimant raised his voice in front of customers and used profanity during an interaction with his manager. As a result of his insubordinate behavior, manager instructed the claimant to leave the premises and not return, thereby initiating the job separation. Whether the claimant was officially fired at the time is not relevant, as he was unable to continue working at that location. Similarly, the fact that he was not given shifts or other locations further supports that the separation occurred after his verbal altercation with his manager. Thus, because the claimant was discharged due to undisputed insubordination, he was discharged for misconduct connected with the work. Modify the AT decision timely, claimant appeal, valid claim, misconduct, no chargeback, adequate employer response.
The decision is correct. The claimant filed a late appeal because he did not receive the determination in a timely manner, since his apartment complex was having the mail held due to construction issues. Therefore, the AT properly deemed the complainant's appeal timely. Regarding the job separation, the claimant was a 13-year employee, and after his last shift, his manager scolded him for not completing his job duties fast enough and told him that he could no longer work shifts at that location and would have to pick up shifts at other locations. However, despite the claimant's best efforts, he was not able to obtain any further shifts. Therefore, the evidence established that the claimant was discharged for reasons other than misconduct connected with the work. Affirm the AT, timely claimant appeal, valid claim, no misconduct, chargeback.
Valid claim, timely appeal, misconduct, no chargeback, adequate employer response.
Short form dissent, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Case number 3682641, Commissioner Esparza.
We should reverse the AT decision. The claimant was discharged for disclosing a patient's private medical information in violation of HIPAA. At the rehearing, the employer provided a firsthand witness who corroborated her prior written statement drafted on the date of the claimant's discharge. The claimant's allegations that she only shared the claimant's allegation that she only shared was information from a Facebook post is neither credible nor persuasive. The employer's witness statement included specific details not found in the Facebook posting, thereby undermining the claimant's credibility. Thus, because of the weight of the credible evidence supports a finding that the claimant violated the employer's policy, we should reverse the AT decision, misconduct, no chargeback, adequate employer response.
The decision is correct. The employer discharged the claimant for allegedly discussing confidential medical information about a former coworker in violation of HIPAA. The claimant provided credible testimony denying the employer's allegations that she violated HIPAA and explained that the information she relayed was public information that she obtained from social media. Therefore, the employer has failed to meet its burden of proving that the claimant was discharged for misconduct connected with the work. Affirm the AT, no misconduct, chargeback.
Misconduct, no chargeback, adequate employer response.
Short form dissent, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Case number 38175220, Commissioner Esparza.
We should affirm the AT decision. The claimant resigned citing health-related concerns. However, she did not inform the employer about her medical complication or provide the employer an opportunity to remedy her needs. Furthermore, the claimant was granted intermittent leave for her health concerns and was never advised by a doctor to quit. Since the claimant resigned when continuing work was available, her separation was voluntary and without work-connected good cause. As such, we should affirm the AT decision, voluntary leaving, reimbursing employer not billed.
The decision is not supportable. The claimant resigned due to her medical condition. Prior to resigning, the claimant took all necessary steps to get her FMLA paperwork approved. However, it took the VA clinic 7 weeks to submit the correct documentation, and the claimant was unable to continue working due to her worsening symptoms. Through FMLA, or though FMLA was granted during her notice period, she was not allowed to rescind her resignation because her position had been filled. Since the claimant's medical symptoms continued to adversely affect her during the delay in processing her FMLA paperwork, the claimant had good cause connected with the work for quitting due to her medically verifiable illness. Reverse the AT, no voluntary leaving, bill reimbursing employer. In the alternative, I would agree to rehear this case to allow the claimant to submit medical documentation and additional testimony regarding the timing of her resignation and attempts to rescind that resignation.
Voluntary leaving, reimbursing employer not billed.
Short form dissent, ma'am.
Yes, sir. That was the last case pulled for discussion on docket 23. You should have received the UI short form dissent list for docket 23.
I move we accept staff recommendations on the remaining UI cases on docket 23.
I second the motion except for those cases which I am dissenting as reflected on UI short form dissent list for docket 23.
I concur with the chairman's motion, except for the cases on which I'm dissenting, as reflected in UI short form dissent list for docket 23.
The motion passes with the exceptions noted.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That brings us to the end of agenda items 1 through 8. We'll take a short recess. Agenda item 9, appointment of PPD new members and chairperson.
Morning, Commissioners. Mr. Serna, Juan Garcia with the VR Division. 4 members of the PPD Advisory Committee have completed their second 4-year term, which is the limit stipulated in the program rules. In response to our posting of the vacancies, we received responses from several interested applicants. After a review of their qualifications, we are recommending the following individuals be appointed to the committee to a first 4-year term ending in February of 2029. These individuals are Janelle Sanders in the advocate category, Robert Griffin in the CRP representative category, Ruth Davis in the CRP representative category, and Cynthia Watson in the individual with a disability employed by a CRP. In addition, the current chairperson of the committee completed his second 4-year term and is no longer allowed to serve as chair. One sitting member, Mr. James Meehan, has expressed an interest in serving as chair. He is currently the CEO of the Austin Lighthouse for the Blind. Should Mr. Meehan be appointed chair, he will serve in that capacity until February of 2027, which is when he will complete his second 4-year term on the committee. Staff recommends the appointment of Ms. Janelle Sanders, Mr. Robert Griffin, Ms. Ruth Davis, and Ms. Cynthia Watson, each to a first year for term on the PPD Advisory Committee, with such term to end in February of 2029. Staff also recommends the appointment of James Meehan as chairperson of the PPD Advisory Committee, with his term ending in February of 2027. With that, I can answer any questions you might have.
Comments or questions?
None here.
No questions.
Is there a motion?
Chairman, I move that we appoint the following individuals to serve on the Purchasing from People with Disabilities Program Advisory Committee for 4-year term expiring in February of 2029. Janelle Sanders, Robert Griffin, Ruth Davis, and Cynthia Watson. And I move that we appoint James Meehan to serve as chairperson of the Purchasing from People with Disabilities Program Advisory Committee through February 1st of 2027.
I second.
Been moved second, motion carries.
Thank you.
So agenda item 10, board nominations.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners, Mr. Serna. For the record, Patricia Martinez, Workforce Development Division. Today for your consideration, we have workforce board nominations for Workforce Solutions Cameron County, North Central Texas, Northeast Texas, and Rural Capital Area. Staff recommends approval on the presented nominees, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Comments or questions?
None here.
No questions.
Is there a motion?
Chairman, I move that we approve the local workforce development board member nominees presented today for the following: Workforce Solutions Cameron County, North Central Texas, Northeast Texas, and Rural Capital Area.
I second.
Been moved second, motion carries. Mr. Cerna, there's, you can feel the energy in almost any room that you're in. And today I'm feeling a lot of energy from people who might be new to TWC, and they have a lot of energy and they're focused on, what they might do this summer. And then I'm feeling some like equivalent energy from some people who, while they're tired, while they're weary, they've been carrying out a lot of action. They're pretty excited about the summer and the fact that it's here.
I think that's right. I
Yeah.
think that's absolutely right. Plus, I think we've got a tie on in the back.
I did notice that. And so tie, I think I've seen maybe once or twice. It's a celebratory tie.
Right. Yeah.
Is there a legislative report today?
I think we can probably ground something.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Mr. Cerna. It is indeed a celebratory tie. For the record, I'm Michael Britt with Governmental Relations. And the event we are celebrating yesterday, the 89th Texas Legislature regular session adjourned sine die. This morning, I wanted to take a few minutes and provide you with an overview of TWC's appropriations, legislative initiatives, and a few of the major bills that we monitored during this legislative session. Before I get into that, though, I did want to take a second and thank everyone who was called upon to serve as a resource witness this session. They were here early in the morning and in some cases stayed well into the evening to carry out those duties. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Cerna, Mary York, Reagan Miller, Eric Holland, Chuck Ross, Tammy Martin, Jennifer Kohlhauer, Chris Nelson, Allison Wilson, and Carrie Ballast all served as resource witnesses this session, did a great job for us. And again, thank you for all your efforts. And I apologize if I left anyone out of that list, but I think I covered everyone. This session, the agency tracked about 1,100 bills, and agency staff prepared well over 2,000 impact and cost analysis on legislation. So I did want to thank all of the agency staff for all their efforts on in preparing those ICAs, and of course the finance staff who worked in many cases longer hours than the GR staff to take those analysis and prepare agency cost estimates for the LBB. For appropriations for the upcoming 2026-2027 biennium, Senate Bill 1, the General Appropriations Act, appropriated $2.98 billion for fiscal year 26 and $3.08 billion for fiscal year 27 in all funds. Senate Bill 1 approved most of TWC's exceptional item requests, including additional general revenue for matching dollars for the VR program, an additional $10 million for the Chapter 133 apprenticeship program, which was a slight reduction from the agency's full request, general revenue funding for the Texas Veterans Leadership Program, general revenue funding for the Texas Veterans Network, additional funding for the Older Individuals Who Are Blind program, and additional funding for the Civil Rights Division. Senate Bill 1 also included an additional $100 million in general revenue for the child care program, $1 million for an expansion of the Senior Keys to Independence program, funding to implement enhanced workforce data system requirements that were enacted through Senate Bill 1786, $2.5 million for an EMS staffing program, and $5 million for each year of the biennium for industry recognized apprenticeships related to the broadband industry. Most all of TWC's capital budget item requests were adopted between both Senate Bill 1 and House Bill 500, which was the supplemental appropriations bill. House Bill 500 also included $68 million in general revenue funding for the Unemployment Insurance Trust Fund and $30.8 million in general revenue to fully match the VR program for the current fiscal year. Regarding TWC's legislative proposals, the legislature passed 6 of TWC's 13 adopted legislative proposals for this session. The proposals passed were House Bill 2788 and Senate Bill 765. Both of those bills were TWC's legislative proposal related to the confidentiality of fraud detection and prevention information. House Bill 2788 applies solely to TWC, and Senate Bill 765 applies to all state agencies. Senate Bill 765 was signed by the governor on May 19th and becomes effective on September 1st, and House Bill 2788 is awaiting action by the governor. House Bill 2791, this is TWC's legislative proposal relating to preserving procurement authority for goods and services for the VR program, and House Bill 2791 is currently awaiting action by the governor. Legislature also passed House Bill 3260 by Representative Keith Bell. This is TWC's proposal related to amendments to the industry recognized apprenticeship program, and it is currently waiting action by the governor as well. House Bill 3698 is TWC's legislative proposal related to RESEA, and that bill was signed into law on May 29th and becomes effective on September 1st. House Bill 3699 was also passed, and that is TWC's legislative proposal relating to modifying the definition of last work, and that bill is awaiting action by the governor. And finally, House Bill 3700 is TWC's legislative proposal that establishes fraud, waste, and abuse detection and prevention for all TWC programs. And that bill was signed on May 29th and becomes effective on September 1st. Few of the major pieces of legislation that the agency monitored this session related to childcare. We had House Bill 117 by Representative Schoolcraft, and this bill establishes the governor's task force on the governance of early childhood education and care. And that task force is comprised of officials from the Health and Human Services Commission, TEA, and TWC, along with members appointed by the governor who represent the Head Start Collaboration Office and those who have expertise in early childhood education and care. House Bill 2294 by Representative Sophronia Thompson allows for the full reimbursement rate to be paid to child care providers by local boards, regardless of the provider's published rate, so long as doing so does not impact the board's ability to meet its performance targets for children served. And this bill is also awaiting action by the governor. House Bill 4903 by Representative Harris Davala. This bill creates the Quad Agency Child Care Initiative, which is comprised of TWC, the Health and Human Services Commission, Department of Family and Protective Services, and TEA to improve child care through coordinated policy and regulatory efforts. And this new initiative is designated to be chaired by the chair of TWC. Senate Bill 462 by Senator Colhorst creates a priority services group within the child care program for the children of child care workers. And this bill was signed by the governor on May 28th and becomes effective on September 1st. Senate Bill 1265 by Senator Alvarado requires the agency also to post on its website a comprehensive list of resources for employers, helping parent employees access child care and other child care options and services. And this bill was signed by the governor on May 28th and becomes effective on September 1st. As I mentioned, the legislature also passed Senate Bill 1786. And this bill requires TWC to coordinate with the Texas Education Agency and Higher Education Coordinating Board on grant programs, including JET program awards, to ensure they are aligned with the state's workforce development goals. The bill also requires TWC to collect enhanced wage records that include wage, industry, occupational fields, and other items. And the bill further requires TWC to conduct a biennial assessment on available regional labor demands across the state. And that bill was signed into law on May 27th, and the bill became effective on that date. Legislature passed two bills related to the JET program. House Bill 322 by Representative Guillen, which allows funding under the JET program to be used for the acquisition and ongoing maintenance of technology solutions necessary to support programs created by the JET program. And Senate Bill 1728, by Senator Perry. And this bill adds the Texas Juvenile Justice Department, juvenile boards, and juvenile probation departments to the list of eligible grantees under the JET program. The legislature also passed Senate Bill 856 by Senator Flores, which adds the Texas A&M Engineering Experiment Station to the list of eligible entities who can apply for skills development funding. And that bill was signed into law on May 20th and is effective September 1st. The legislature finally passed a few bills related to our workforce programs. House Bill 3800 by Representative Orr directs TWC to establish an advisory board to develop a resource guide that facilitates collaborations among healthcare providers and institutions of higher education, more closely identifying and addressing local healthcare workforce needs. Senate Bill 1143 by Senator Blanco. And this bill requires that government entities offering financial incentives that create at least 100 jobs are to notify TWC and the relevant workforce development board, and also requires TWC to annually evaluate the effectiveness of its federally funded youth programs and provide best practices for local boards. This bill was signed into law on May 27th and is effective September 1st. Senate Bill 1535 by Senator Zaffarini establishes an advanced nuclear energy workforce development program at TWC to meet the urgent skilled labor needs of the advanced nuclear energy industry in Texas. And Senate Bill 2448 by Senator Sparks establishes a rural workforce development program at TWC that emphasizes high wage and high demand careers aligned with regional labor demands. And Senate Bill 2448 was signed into law by the governor on May 30th and is effective September 1. In closing, I did just want to take one moment and recognize the GR team who joined me in the back of the room. They have done a lot of hard work this session, and most of which have been with the agency less than a year. So it was a learning opportunity for them. They did a great job. I want to recognize Joe Dyer, Chelsea Thomas, Maggie McClanahan, Jen Schugert, and Ted Rabb. And of course, holding down the fort for us in DC. Joining us online is Allison Robertson. But they all did a outstanding job coordinating agency resource testimony, monitoring legislative hearings and floor activity, of course, covering just over 100 committee hearings this session. It is truly my privilege to work alongside them each and every day. And with that, This concludes my remarks. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Remarks be reduced, writing.
We will do that.
I just wanted to thank you, Michael, and your team for all the work you did. I thought we were the only ones that work weekends and nights, but getting emails even on holidays, just keeping us up to date is commendable. And even you going above and beyond to wear different attire if you had to in a hearing was great. But thank you all for what you've done for this session and what you've done for the workers in Texas.
Thank you, sir.
Second that, Michael. Congrats and well deserved on good wins on continuing our mission here. So thank you all so much for all the hard work you all did. And I don't work weekends.
I do sometimes, and these guys will sneak up on you in the hallway. You gotta keep your eye out for them at all times. Ms. Britt, in terms of resource witnesses, you had a long list of resource witnesses.
Yes,
Have you done an analysis of which of our resource witnesses created the most sort of conversation in their service as a resource witness?
I do believe the most memorable was Mary York.
Mary York.
She had a very memorable appearance in the Senate Economic Development Committee toward the end of session.
We'll
Yes.
take that up at a separate time as a commission.
I'd be happy to distribute clips to your offices.
Thank you
Of her
very much. Michael, you guys, like if you don't do legislative work for a living, it is an interesting pace. 140 days, and they mean days, not business days. They mean calendar days, and the legislature often works through the weekend, through the night, and I think for people who don't really pursue that line of work, I think they're probably not as thankful as they ought to be for the people that do. It's such an interesting thing. I was trying to count up the other day. I think this is my 13th legislative session that I've gotten to participate in. They're all interesting. They're all unique, but there's this underlying thing that's the same. And we don't tell you we appreciate you enough. We wait for the end of the session to see how we did, to see, if we're going to tell you we appreciated you. And when we did this year wholeheartedly, but I always do. I have done what you do for a living. And it is such an interesting job, and there's so much on the line. There's so many rules about how we have to do it, and you do that with an incredible amount of good cheer, and I genuinely appreciate that. I think your attitude helps us strike a better attitude as a commission, and we should be glad we get to work with the legislature because they do listen and they do care. This legislature particularly, and the governor's office, lieutenant governor as well. They've asked really good questions, and I think that's because we've done our work carefully about getting those issues in front of them. And so I'm glad that we have a chance to do it, and I'm glad I get to work with you to do that as well.
Well, thank you, sir.
Absolutely.
Appreciate you and everyone.
Anything else for Mr. Brett?
I would like his staff to stand so we can at least recognize them.
Absolutely. It's interesting because there's a y'all can sit down. You don't have to stand up for this part. There's a person I work with that's named Kelsey Thomas, and then there's somebody in let's say hers that's named Chelsea Thomas, and so Chelsea, 3 or 4 times I've saved you from getting an email about why I was unhappy with what I was unhappy about, but I'm not always going to catch those. So I hope you have Mr. Brett's good attitude about that. Just send it back to me and tell me I got the wrong Thomas. All right. All right. Anything else, guys? Thank you.
Thank you again.
Mr. Cernan, Executive Director's report.
Very quickly, one thing I would like to add that Michael left off, and I thought you were going to ask maybe, was which one of our staff was up the most for hearings, and it was actually a contest between Mary York and Reagan Miller, and then in their respective divisions, Carrie Ballas and Allison Wilson. I think they spent the most time there down at the legislature. And we'll take a count, and so we can have the official record of which one was down there longer, or not longer, but more times than the other. The other thing I want to make sure that that y'all are aware of is, of course, we have a lot of our interns in the audience. You may want to recognize them, depending on whether they're in each of y'all's offices, but we have several had the opportunity to greet them at their new employee orientation. And I've seen several of them working already and in the halls and all. So I'm very glad that they've joined us for the brief period of time that they'll be with us. Hopefully some of them will return, already thinking of the future as employees are considered TWC as a place for employment. So I wanted to make sure you were aware of that. And then the last thing I wanted to make sure, I know that Michael mentioned Allison Robertson in Washington, but one of the things that she's been doing is monitoring all the activity that's been going on that's been affecting the Department of Labor and the changes in the budget, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We have a lot of questions coming to us from the boards for obvious reasons. Right now, everything is preliminary. We hate to say these are the numbers because they keep, they're going to be changing. The House has passed out a budget, but the Senate hasn't yet. But we'll keep you all informed and the boards as informed as we can with regard to the progress, especially when it becomes final. But right now, preliminary looks are like there will be a reduction in several of our grant sources, with the exception right now of maybe childcare. There'll be a reduction in several of our grant sources that we'll have to work through. And Chris and his staff and Mary and her staff are already doing that. And with that, that's all I have to report.
All right. Is there any other order of business come before the commission?
Well, just to recognize the intern in my office, Elena Pacheco, if you want to stand. She's a law student at St. Mary's University in San Antonio, and welcome her to the office. Thank you.
Normally I'd invite her to the podium to give 3 to 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But I don't think we're prepared for that today.
Yeah. If I can do the same, Chairman, we also have a legal intern from St. Mary's, Katie Austin, who hails from Austin, lives in San Antonio. So we appreciate her being here, and David Rodriguez, not the catcher from Tampa Bay, but the amazing intern that we have. So I offer and ask that you impart your wisdom and experience to either of them at will. Thank you.
At will?
That will.
Katie tried to retreat when you called her name. We're definitely not doing it. We should let her do her 3 to 5 minutes first. And likewise, Nicholas Gallardo and David Bruce back here are in our office. They I think over the last week or so have discovered what other duties as assigned means, and so that's always a good learning curve when you hit the place. Summer interns in this agency, in my office, and I know the other commission offices and around the agency, we're gonna make sure interns get to do actual work. We want you to come back. I got 2 former interns working in my office now, Lauren and Lauren. Neither one of you guys' name is Lauren, but I still think you got a good shot if you work hard and you're able to do that. It works out. You learn some things. You learn you like some things. You learn some things you don't like. You finish school, and there's an opportunity to hire. I read a statistic the other day that said 70-something% of people's first job is as a result of their internship. It's why we're so focused on that here at TWC. I think we have a great internship experience. I'm glad we're able to attract such quality interns. I look at who's working where and what they're doing, and honestly, I think we're in real good shape in terms of our ability to bring some folks in that want to learn some things. And then it really gives our staff an opportunity to kind of expand everyone's horizons and let us move forward. So it's an exciting time. Glad you guys are here. A lot of opportunities this summer. Is there anything else come before the commission? If not, we'll take a motion to adjourn.
Chairman, I move to adjourn.
My second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn, and we're adjourned.